What's up, guys? Iceman here. So in this video, I'm going to go over some items that you might want to be on the lookout for Diablo 2 Resurrected. Now, this video could be for new toads, or for fat toads who haven't played this game before, or for those who just haven't played Diablo 2 in a long time. So check this out. Oftentimes, people will make Sorceress class to start out with because she has teleport and she has a lot of area of effect skills. Now, hopefully, Diablo 2 Resurrected will implement melee splash damage. That's my opinion anyway. But they probably won't. It's probably asking for too much. So basically, to hell with the melee classes and let's talk about the casters. So Leaf is an item that is a very nice addition to an early on sorceress. This item is built around fire skills. So for the sorceress especially, this can be useful. However, you could also use it on a fire trap assassin or a fire droid. But namely the sorceress. Partly for this reason, you can get a staff in Act 2 from the merchants that has preferable skills on it if you shop them enough. Ideally, you want one that has Firebolt or Fireball, mainly Fireball, because that stat, whatever stats are on the base staff, they'll remain the same after you make the rune word. So this item is easy as fuck to make. It's basically a Tur and a Rel rune and a two-socketed staff. Now, mind you, you can't make it in a magic staff that has two sockets. It has to be either a superior or a plain item with two sockets in it. And you have to put the runes in the correct order. So Tur, Rel. And basically, it'll get you through normal mode and some of Nightmare, and you could just be using this staff. You could probably even make it to Hell mode with this staff if you have the right base for it. But an option is to start off as a Fire Sork and then later transition into a Blizzard Sork or something else that you prefer. Maybe even a Lightning Sorceress. But I would advise that you attain the rune word Infinity before becoming a Lightning Sorceress, because you're just going to get your ass kicked without it and you're not going to be able to kill everything. The same could, to a lesser extent, could be said about the Fire and Cold Sork, but yeah, if you're a Lightning Sorceress without Infinity, you're fucked. So another item to look out for, or runes to look out for, Thul, Io, and Neph rune. Now this is if you are a melee class, if you're a paladin, because this rune word is just very cheap. So even if you have a better melee item as a weapon, you can have black on switch because it has a lot of crushing blow, which per hit reduces the target's life by certain percentage points. So if it has a massive pool of life, like a boss for example, you'll be able to chop away at it with crushing blow. And then once you narrow their health down, you could switch back to your higher damage item and finish the boss off with that. So black is just really cheap, and it's great for a barbarian, or a paladin, or a melee droid, a werewolf, a werebear droid, or anything of that sort, because you can have this, like I said, on Switch. It has a ton of crushing blow. You can find crushing blow on other unique items, but the thing about black is it's just very cheap. And you can make it in even a flail. So you can purchase the flail from Act 2 normal merchants with 3 sockets, and you can make this thing. And you're really going to be swatting ass with that. Rime is one of Iceboy's most favorite rune words for early on, for a few reasons. Now, it's very cheap to make. It requires a shale and an eth rune in any 2-socketed shield. You can even make these in paladin shields that come with resists on them, or enhanced damage on them. But I usually make them in a bone shield or a grim shield or something like that, or even a large shield for that matter, or a kite shield, depending on whatever you can get. Now this shield is great for many different classes. I generally prefer it for a Javazan especially, but you can use it on other classes as well. Now the thing about Rime is it's really cheap to make. It regenerates some mana, and most namely I would say it has resistances all of 25. And it has cannot be frozen, which is a very important attribute to have in Diablo 2. Because when you're frozen, you can't run or walk as fast, and if you're a melee or ranged character, you can't attack as fast either. In most cases, it doesn't affect casters, but still, I like running around as a caster as well, so I just like having this mod on any character, really. But it's especially useful for melee and ranged characters and anyone who's just running a lot, which are most of them. So it cannot be frozen, and then it has 25% better chance of getting magic items. So a very beneficial shield to use, and it's very cheap. And of course, you want magic find early on in the game because you don't have shit when you start out. You basically want to start finding as many sets and uniques as possible. So in order to achieve this more effectively, you want to have magic find on your gear because it enhances the chance of you finding magical items, which in turn also enhances the chance of finding rare, set, and unique items as well. So Rime is told. Smoke is an item that will help get you through hell mode. If you're basically anyone. If you're struggling and resist, you want this item. It's also a great item for mercenaries early on. Now it has, compared to the other items I showed, so far the most expensive rune in it. But even with that being said, Lum really isn't worth shit. So you can generally find a Lum rune by the time you're through Nightmare. You can get them from your Nightmare Forge even. Hopefully you don't because you want something better than a Lum. But it is possible to drop one in your Nightmare Forge. And Hell, of course. So Smoke is just a great armor because it has faster hit recovery, and you want that on any class. Casters included. Because the faster you can recover from a hit, the faster you can get back into action and kill your enemy. It has decent defense, has some energy, but most importantly, it has all resistances of 50. So it's a lot of resists you get from this armor. It's one of the highest resists body armors in the game. There's Chains of Honor, which is a very expensive rune word, which gives 65 to all res. But this is a really high resist armor, and it's quite cheap to make. So you could use this on a variety of builds and characters. So it's a very popular item. It's very in demand early on, as is the Lum rune. So now, going to showcase Obedience. This item just does a lot of damage, and that's primarily why you want it. You can put this on your mercenary. So mind you, for your mercenary, you want to get ethereal items on him or her because they can't break when they're on a mercenary. Items that your mercenary wears do not lose durability. Even if he dies, doesn't affect the item's durability. So you can make ethereal items and put them on your mercenary. So you can make Obedience in pole arms. So if you find a 4-socketed or 5-socketed pole arm, it needs 5 sockets, you can make an Obedience. It just does a ton of damage. It offers faster recovery. It has Crushing Blow, so you could consider that as well for reasons that I previously mentioned. It has all resistances, which is important for your mercenary, especially early on. So if you say have a Blizzard Sork or something like that who can kill everything that's not cold immune, you're going to struggle some with the cold immunes. This is where your mercenary can come in and really kill them all if you make him powerful enough. Like when you're running the Chaos Sanctuary, for example, and you're killing everything with Blizzard, you can then teleport onto the Oblivion Knights, and your mercenary will kill them while wielding Obedience. So Obedience is a very popular item, early on especially, and it's quite cheap to make. It needs a Foul rune and a Ko rune, which are the 2 most expensive runes in this item, but both of those runes are quite cheap, and you can get either of them from the Nightmare Forge as well. But again, hopefully you get something higher than them from the Nightmare Forge. You can generally find them from farming the Countess or just farming Nightmare areas. And beyond, Nightmare and Hell areas especially. You could also make this for a Barbarian, a Whirlwind Barbarian. Make sure you don't make it in an ethereal item, however. If you're going to be using it on your main character, you can make it on you can use it on a Fury Druid or even a Zeal Paladin. So yeah, Obedience is toad as fuck. Insight is probably one of the most popular items, especially early on for ladder resets in Diablo 2. I would say it's in probably the top 3 in-demand items. Basically, everyone wants a 4-socketed pull of any sort. They usually don't give a shit what it is. It can be the most low-damage item possible. But as long as it has 4 sockets, they want that thing, because you can make an insight in it. Insight runeword has the meditation aura, which helps regenerate a lot of mana for yourself and your party. It basically is just mana regeneration multiplied. So you'll regenerate it several times faster with this aura applied. And it has a certain range to where if you put it on your mercenary and he follows you around, you're going to benefit off of the aura. So it's commonly used for sorceresses, where they'll have it on their mercenary. And even if they're mana-intensive sorcs, you'll be able to regenerate it quite effectively if you have an insight on your mercenary. In many cases, insight is re-rolled. So if you put a Hell rune in your cube, along with a Scroll of Town Portal, and the rune word that you already made, and you transmute it, it'll delete the runes that are in the item, giving you your base back with its sockets in it to where you can remake the rune word and hopefully re-roll for a higher level meditation aura, or just re-roll for higher stats on the rune word that you previously made. But Insight is one that is commonly re-rolled, especially if it's in a expensive base, which are elite ethereal polearms, are the most desired base to make an Insight in. Giant threshers, giant poleaxes, great poleaxes, and cryptic axes, threshers, and so forth. So insights are very desirable, and they're very cheap to make. But the problem is, it can be difficult getting a 4-socketed polearm. So you can start finding them throughout Nightmare, and the expensive, or the elite ethereal ones with 4 sockets can go for a high price, in some cases even a high rune. So if you find a plain ethereal poleaxe that's an elite item and it has no sockets, you can potentially roll 4 sockets in it via transmuting it in a cube, if it can roll 4 sockets, which I believe most elite ones can, other than in the Ogre Axe. But the Colossus Volge will always get 4 sockets if you Larzuk quest it, if you use the Larzuk quest to put the sockets in it. Because how that quest works is it applies the maximum amount of sockets for that item's base. Now, in order to know this information more thoroughly, check out the Ariat Summit website. I'll link it in the description of this video. But Insight is very popular and very in demand in Diablo 2. Spirit Sword is very popular as well. Most casters want this by the time they're in Nightmare. You can use it when you're level 25. You need a Tal, Thol, Ort, and Amrune, and it can be made in any 4-socketed sword. So of course you want to make these in one-handed swords, primarily ones that have very low requirements to use, because you can ignore the damage that this sword offers if you're a caster, because the damage on the sword doesn't affect your spells at all. They only affect you things that you hit with the sword itself. So if you're a sorceress or an elemental droid or anything of that sort, it doesn't matter how much damage the sword does. So make it in a crystal sword, or make it in a broadsword or a long sword with 4 sockets. It's just overall a very, maybe even overpowered item. It gives 2 to all skills, a range of faster cast rate, which is very important, 55% faster hit recovery, which is a very large amount of faster hit recovery. There's no item in the game that surpasses this when it comes to faster hit recovery, as far as I know. And it gives a lot of mana and vitality. You can also make Spirit in a shield, in a 40s Monarch or a 40s Ward, but you're not going to come across those till Hell mode. So yeah, for beginners and noobs, you want to make the Spirit in a one-handed sword to begin with. So here's lore, just a very nice helm to have early on. It gives 1 to all skills, lightning res, some mana per kill, which can be very useful. So basically, lore is a helm that a lot of folks make as soon as possible because it's a very easy way to get 1 to all skills added to your character. You can also find Tarn helm early on, or other helms, but the chances of finding things like that are very low. Especially before you're able to make a lore helm, because it requires an Orton Sol rune. You can get those from the normal forge. If you get lucky, you'll get a Sol rune from that. And just any 2-socketed helm. You can buy those from the merchants. So generally you want to make one of these as soon as possible. Almost no matter what build or class you're playing as. Stealth is an armor that is made by most players early on. Partly because it gives faster run walk. The faster you can run, the faster you can get shit done. And partly because it gives faster cast rate and it gives faster hit recovery. It's just overall a very nice and cheap armor. This is probably going to be the first rune word that you make. This is often made by Act 2 normal mode. You can buy a 2-socketed armor. I prefer a studded leather from that bitch in Act 1. I can't remember her name. Well, you can buy a 2-socketed plain studded leather armor from her if you farm her enough. Just leave town and come back and keep shopping her armors until you find one. And then you can find a Tal and an Eth rune by Act 2 normal mode. So like I said, this is going to help you run faster, cast faster, recover faster from getting hit, all of which are very desirable mods. So make a stealth and usually are going to use this throughout most of normal mode. So if you guys will, let me know what you think of this list of these items and what do you recommend for early Diablo 2 Resurrected items. What rune words do you generally make as soon as possible early on through namely normal mode or nightmare mode? And what items have I potentially left out that you think are very useful early on and easy to attain? Comment below your thoughts on these matters and become a patron if you want. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me. May your finances be blessed, and may you have many wives.